L is excused.
Okay, thank you. And we have the approval of this evening's agenda. I've gotten a request if we couldn't move the last agenda item, application 2377, a home for mom and dad, to be old business, moved up to the first item of the agenda. So with that change, is there a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Is there support?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Boyd to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the approval of our minutes of January 12th. Are there any changes, corrections? If not, is there a motion for approval?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the January 12th, 2022 special meeting as submitted.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Grieger to approve the January 12th minutes as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the the minutes for our January 19th meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes of the January 19th, 2022 meeting as submitted.
Is there support?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Boyd to approve the January 19th minutes as submitted. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Okay, very good. The record shows that Commissioner Dorshevitz abstains. The motion does carry. Is there anyone here that wishes to address the commission on a non-agenda item? Okay, hearing none, then we will move directly to the old business item, which is a home for mom and dad. And they're requesting an extension. And Ms. Howell, you have something?
Yes, thank you. As you recall, the Planning Commission reviewed the site plan for an assisted living facility at 39625 Plymouth Road last year, and at the February 17th, 2021 regular meeting, the Commission did grant tentative site plan approval. The zoning ordinance allows for one site plan extension of up to 365 days. We've just about come up to the 1 year mark since the February 17th approval of last year. So the applicant is requesting a full year extension, which would give them until February 17th, 2023 to submit their final plans and come back before the commission. And they have provided a letter to that effect and are here this evening. Thank you.
The applicant here? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Leclerc from Green Tech Engineering.
Okay.
With me tonight is Ben Arsenal. Ben is the applicant and now owner of the property. We were here a year ago and gained site plan approval through this body. And over the course of that year, as he was bidding out the project, that was during the time when lumber prices were really, really expensive, a little bit more than they are today. Plus, he was faced with the labor shortage, which is starting to get a little bit better, so he's starting to feel comfortable now, and he wants to go ahead and push forward. And we have prepared engineering documents. We've been working with Wayne County on the engineering documents, and we've also submitted the engineering documents to the city engineer. So we are moving forward now with the construction process, or the construction plans, and anticipate construction starting late spring, early summer. So.
Any questions or comments from the commission? Okay, are we ready for a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve a 1 year site plan extension to February 17th of 2023 for application 2377, Home for Mom and Dad Assisted Living Facility.
Is there support?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Grieger to grant the 1 year extension to applicant 2377. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck to you.
Good luck.
Now we go on to new business, which is the sign for the Adient facility. And you have a report?
Yes, thank you. Last year, the Adjournment facility off of Halyard Drive received administrative site plan approval and construction approval for a new public entrance to their facility. And since that time, they have also applied for a wall signage permit and been approved by the building department to showcase their new logo at their newly designed entrance. And they have now submitted an application for a sign permit for a ground sign that does not have a masonry base. So they're requesting a waiver to that masonry requirement. Our recommendation is to grant approval to the non-masonry base, which is aluminum, as it is consistent with the established Adient corporate identity and would match their approved wall sign to the facility. We recommend that contingent on 2 items. The first is that the address itself on the ground sign is below the 30 inches from the grade. So they would need to raise that in order to make sure that it wasn't, obstructed by snow or any landscaping. And they also need to note on their building permit that the sign is set back a minimum of 10 feet. Just from a scale, I think they exceed that, but they would need to properly identify that on their plot plan. I have discussed this with the applicant, and they are comfortable extending the base to accommodate for that 30 inches. The sign will still be under the allowable maximum height. And the applicant, I don't believe, is here this evening, not local, but if the commission has questions, I have his contact information and we could call him. Thank you.
Okay. Questions or comments about the sign?
Right now, there's what looks like a temporary sign on the next driveway east on Halyard Road. I presume that's going to be taken down when this sign is put up, is that correct?
Correct, yes. There will only be one entrance ground sign off of Halyard Drive.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Is there a motion to approve the sign as specified in the planner's report?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Dorchevitz. Is there a support?
Support.
Excuse me. Moved by Commissioner Dorchevitz and supported by Commissioner Barberina to approve the Adient sign subject to said conditions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is application 2416, and that deals with the Plymouth industrial development area there on 5 and Ridge. So you have your report?
Thank you. The application before you is for site plan consideration. The applicant, BC Construction Group, is requesting approval for the approximately 280,000 square foot warehouse and office facility. The project is located on just over a 100-acre site that is just north of the Adient facility we spoke of, south of 5 Mile Road, and runs along the boundary of the CSX Railroad for most of its northern property line. This vacant site is known as Lot 14 of the Michigan International Technology Center. This corridor has been a decade-long redevelopment project between the townships of Plymouth and Northville, as well as the state of Michigan and Wayne County. And the development on this site really represents progress along that corridor in establishing that area. The proposal itself is to construct a 1-story building with front and rear parking areas and a detention pond in the north corner of the site. It's properly zoned. It's zoned the I&D Industrial District, where warehousing and office uses are principal uses. They're not special land uses. The majority of the site, the eastern portion, will remain undeveloped at this time. It's our understanding that the applicant would seek additional phases for buildings in the future, but those future phases would require separate review and application by the Planning Commission. So our recommendation on page 2 is as the site plan largely complies with Article 29, the site plan review standards of the zoning ordinance, we do recommend that the Planning Commission grant tentative site plan approval. And we note that prior to final site plan approval, there are several items that we'd like to see addressed. And tonight is an opportunity for the Planning Commission to provide some feedback to the applicant on some of those items. I'll briefly go through some of those outstanding conditions. The first is that this phase of development for the site is going to remove 62 trees. Some of those are just regulated trees, and others are considered heritage trees. With those calculations of both those trees, 233 inches is required to be replaced on the site, which is the equivalent of approximately 78 3-inch caliper trees. We are requesting some additional information on the replacement of those trees. It looks like some of them may be counted towards other landscaping requirements, so we'll just want to make sure that that is addressed in the final landscape plan. But in terms of the other landscape items on page 6, we made a couple recommendations where some additional landscaping could go, particularly around the building foundation and along the internal roadways. The building facade is unusually long for Plymouth Township. It's over 1,100 linear feet, and we feel that some additional foundational landscaping in the front would help soften and break up the facade. Parking is the second item for consideration by the Planning Commission. Based on the current standards in the zoning ordinance, the project requires 600 parking spaces. The applicant is proposing 326, and then there's an additional 28 parking spaces that are shown as banked parking to the southeast of the building. So they are short 246 spaces per our code standards. The applicant has noted on the site plan that they anticipate 1 parking space for every 1,500 square feet, which would yield 191 spaces. We do acknowledge that the standards related to warehousing and distribution in the township ordinance could be modernized to reflect really the operations of the industry. That's a separate discussion. But in terms of this site plan, and to work within the requirements, we recommend that the applicant construct the 326 parking spaces and then just identify on the site plan where additional banked parking could go so that it could be constructed in the future if needed. And then perhaps by the time the applicant would come back with another phase of development for the site, the township would have amended its industrial parking requirements. So that is the second item for the Planning Commission to discuss with the applicant. The third is the building design and architecture. The building facade will be constructed of painted concrete panels, 3 different hues of gray. This is the same material that was used on the Wabasto industrial facility. First, the Planning Commission must find that the proposed palette of grays to be compatible with the surrounding area and the environment. On the west, the front facade, we do note that there are kind of 3 entrance areas where there's some first floor windows and a little bit of a variation in the roof line. And this does help break it up, but we recommend some further architectural variations to the facade. There are no windows proposed on the north, south, or east elevations. The township's ordinance requires that for any facades greater than 100 feet in length, that they be broken up to create rhythm and visual interest. So we do recommend, again, some additional windows on the front elevation, as well as changes in the roof line and building projections. We note that this, we acknowledge that this is an industrial facility, but it is also one of the first large buildings in the MITC corridor and kind of sets the tone. And because of its prominence on Ridge Road, we believe deserves some more attention. Lastly, regarding the building and signage, and this is more for the applicant, but they do show 2 proposed monument signs on their plan, and not enough details have been provided to review those signs, so they would need to seek a separate permit application with the building department. But if they are proposing a non-masonry base, if they believe that will be the end game, then we recommend they at least provide enough details to the commission when they come back for a final site plan, so that they could receive that waiver then. The other underlying items in our report are pretty straightforward. So we recommend that tonight the Planning Commission really focus on those 3 areas: the landscaping, the banked parking, and the building facade, so that the applicant can make adjustments and come back for final site plan approval once they have updated the plans. Thank you.
And we have the engineering report?
Yes, so for the proposed site, they propose 2 driveway accesses on the northern and southern part of the buildings. And then it's looks like a throughfare for trucks mostly, but then they also offer a 24-foot drive aisle on the western part of the building, closest to Ridge Road. This parking lot has fire hydrants alongside the parking lot, and per the ordinance for Plymouth Township, we actually require this drive aisle to be 26 feet wide for emergency access vehicles. So we request that change to be made. It does appear that there's sufficient green space between the parking lot and Ridge Road to accommodate this, so we don't see this as being an issue. There seems to be some spacing or lack of spacing between the water main and the building itself. We will require the actual proposed water main to be 20 feet away from the building at all times. And the site will be supplied with a looped water main around the building. There is no proposed sizing on any of the utilities on site, but for industrial complexes, we will need this water main to be 12 inches per standards. And there will also be proposed or a public sanitary provided on the site as well. The sanitary crosses the proposed road to the south approximately 3 times, and we ask that this look to be revised and cross the road a minimum amount of times, and also at right angles to minimize maintenance on the roadway if the sanitary sewer ever needs to be maintained. But at this time, there's several wetlands across the site. We were supplied with a wetland identification report. None of the identified wetlands from Eagle are currently being impacted, but there appears to be 2 detention basins alongside a few of the wetlands. To avoid a permit through Eagle, no grading or storm sewer work can be allowed in either one of these wetlands. But from what is being supplied at this time, we recommend moving forward with site plan approval and move forward towards engineering documents.
Thank you very much. And the applicants received a communication from the fire department noting some deficiencies that would need to be corrected from a public safety perspective. And the applicant is here. You want to step up and can address some of the questions.
Well, I'm Matt Patella with BC Construction, and like you guys said, we're proposing an industrial-type building. It's speculative in nature, set up with 3 storefronts and possible 4 tenants for this building. So it would have car parking along the whole front and truck docks in the back that are screened from the road.
Are you able to talk about the trees, the landscaping issues that Ms. Howe had raised? Oh, yeah.
Go back up to trees.
We'll definitely deal with that. We weren't able to find any landscape requirements in the detention pond area in you guys' ordinance, but we'll.
Is your mic on over there, sir? It is, okay.
And what about the parking? Can you talk about the parking at all?
Yeah, our experience with the parking is that this type of user that goes into these buildings does not require that. But our plan would be to, in the event that a user does come in for that amount of parking, that we would utilize some of that truck court area or the area in the back of the building as car parking.
So why is there such a large discrepancy between the calculation that the ordinance yielded versus what you guys are going to do? Well, why is that, do you think?
The only thing I can think of is, more things are automated in this type of work warehouse. Okay.
Hi, Joseph Webb, Webb Engineering. I did the site plan. I believe in the planner's report, it was mentioned that the requirement of 1 spot per 400 space is excessive. That is much greater than surrounding areas and everything for this type of use. And the tenant or the applicant has noted that their typical buildings of this size only requires 1 per 1,500. But the good thing that we have here is that they do have a tenant that is parking intensive, car parking intensive. We can utilize those truck dock areas and not necessarily have to create more impervious area for something that likely will not be utilized.
So what I can say is usually on a car parking, they usually don't need the dock space or vice versa. When they need the dock space, they don't have that many uses for car parking.
And Laura, this is for tentative approval? Is that what they're here for?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then the building elevations and the colors and material, did you bring any samples? Want to talk a little bit about the color?
I mean, the color is we're willing to kind of work with that if we need to. We typically pick neutral, darker colors so it doesn't show any dirt on the building and moving forward. So we try to stay away from your whites and your real bright colors.
And they're pretty weather resistant because we always like to look at something that has a lifespan of about 20 years so the building looks, good with minimum maintenance over those period of time. Okay.
Can you bring building samples to the next meeting? Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Pictures and stuff, we do these all the time.
That would be very helpful because it's an important building for us since it's the first one in this
Gonna set the
area.
tone.
So you're going to be setting the tone for the other applicants that will be coming forward. So we're going to be looking very carefully at design and color. So come prepared. Words of the wise. Anything else from the commission? Questions, comments,
So
concerns?
refresh my memory then, how's the process walkthrough from here? So this is the first site plan review.
It is. It's the first one. This is tentative. So that if we grant tentatives tonight, then they will move forward to, more detail on the plan. I'm a little concerned about the elevations and building materials since you'll probably come in for final when you come back. And if you set everything in stone, then it's very difficult for us to suggest changes at that point. I guess what we could ask them to do is to provide, as they are along in that process, and I'm not sure where you are in that process, to at least submit those materials to the Administrative Review Committee and get some initial feedback to see if they're on the right track, or if you want to come back before getting final. But at a time period that changes could still be made.
Yeah, 'cause
What's your time, what do you expect your timing to be in terms of final site plan? And then assuming that goes well, then when would you break ground?
Try to break ground as soon as we can, but we're hoping for midsummer right now.
I can tell you that's gonna be dependent on Wayne County. Our signals there.
Right.
Yeah,
And getting our soil erosion permit is probably gonna be one of the biggest items.
he didn't say which year in the midst.
Laura, does that approach on the building elevation sound reasonable to you?
It does. I think if there's any specific feedback that the commission could give to the applicant tonight based on the elevations, that would be helpful. So for instance, if, I don't know, Trustee, if you'd like to pull the elevations up on
Sure.
they're under the current projects, but
But the building material, Laura, is similar to what Wabasco used?
Business. How do I get to that again, Laura?
it's under community development and then departments, I'm sorry, government,
Departments.
to the left.
To the left, my left or your left?
To your left. Yep, and then at the bottom,
Oh, yeah.
current projects. So, for instance, one area that we might be able to get specific in, the west, the front facade, if those 3 storefronts are enough, or if the commission would like to see double that, or even more, or
This is what you would see from Ridge Road?
from Ridge Road, yeah. So if you'd like to see additional storefronts, if you'd like to see windows along, more than just the first floor of the building, if you have concerns about the lack of windows on the north or the south facades that you would see as you're, driving along Ridge Road.
Are there any other pictures in there, Bob?
Sorry?
Are there any other photos in there, or items with the elevation? It's really hard to tell with that picture, that schematic, what it looks
plan.
like.
Hard to
Yeah, it's
tell
really
from
hard to tell
something
from
like-
that.
Without a rendering or?
We can have colored elevations prepared for when we submit.
Yeah, that would be good, because otherwise, we could table tentative, or we need some more information before final. It's really difficult to tell from that what the building's gonna look like.
From this drawing?
Is, for example, that's glass that's up there, or is that the white rectangles? What is that?
Darker, there's glass windows there, and then the storefront entry, and those panels there at those entry locations are painted a different color, a darker color.
So are the windows, are they tinted a certain color? Are they clear?
Typically, yeah, a green tint is typically what we do.
And the surrounding masonry material would be what color?
There's 3 different hues of gray.
Yeah, 3 different tones of gray.
I think it's important in this to realize that this building is essentially 2/10 of a mile long, and it's going to cover the entire east side of Ridge Road from the top of the Adient property where that ends all the way to the railroad track. So it is going to become a very prominent piece of architecture on that part of Ridge Road. And since it is really near to Ridge Road, it's going to be very visible. And I think, as Laura's report said, this does really set a tone for all of the MITC development up there. So I'd like to see a little bit more of the architectural elements that Laura's report is suggesting. Because this is going to have a very, very big prominent presence on Ridge Road when it gets built.
Well, we could table tentative for them to come back with additional color renderings and
Because that's the point of tentative, right?
that's right, yeah. I mean, do you plan on any landscaping in front of that large surface so we have an idea of what it's going to look like? I think Mr.
A pretty heavy tree line running along the curb line closer to Ridge Road. So you're going to have some screening through that, but I think we need rendering, or an actual rendering.
Parking islands throughout the whole frontage that will be planted with trees and landscape.
If we grant tentative that says that we're agreeing with this, I don't think we have enough information to tell you that you're on the right track.
I agree. I agree, and I think Commissioner Boyd's comment about the mass of that building, respective to, from Adient all the way up to the railroad track is big. We have to make sure it's appropriate for that area and does set the tone. So, tabling, tentative, until they can get that additional information to us. I would feel more comfortable. Any other comments on that?
I agree.
What other feelings from commissioners or?
I agree because to let it go to the administrative committee, it'd be one thing if most of this was settled, but to give all that power to a few
Right.
people, we're all not doing our job.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I always try to play, not to delay your schedule. I know, construction is important. You're anxious to get the shovel in the ground. But on the other hand, the look of this is important to Plymouth Township as well.
That's all totally understandable. If you're going to table this, I think we're okay with that. But are there any other items that the planning commission would like us to address, like the planner mentioned, landscaping, other things like that?
I
just
think
so we
all
can make sure that-
of that, if you just follow through the planner's report, the landscaping, indicating where the bank parking would be. There was another,
Which parcel is it?
the wooded area just to the north of the Adient along Ridge Road. Adient owned that
Here,
land.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
You can do Google Maps, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's right there, it's
Right in here.
that triangle.
Yeah. Is it the entire parcel?
It's pretty much Ridge Road, the railroad, and the development to the south. That whole triangle.
There is a buffer though between this business park and where our building starts. And there's a wetland. And then there's also a buffer in between our park and our building.
I also had a question for the longer term. If you're going to, this isn't relative to the approval we're talking about right now, but just for your longer term plans, when you develop the rest of that property, are you planning to have a connection to West Anchor Court in the office park below? There is a 66-foot,
There's a 66-foot easement right here.
Right.
For access that was granted to the northern property.
were you planning to have an actual road there or just utilities and so forth?
More than likely, we would have some sort of access drive just for cars. But that's going to be something that the developers going to have to make a decision on.
Thank you. It's right there, Bob. Yeah.
So again, kind of reinforce the answer to your question is just follow the planner's report, parking elevations. I mean, see, the elevations are prominent in our view. Parking, we understand, our standards perhaps need to be looked at, but that's not going to happen for this application anyway, but it's a good point. Any other items, Laura, that you might want them to pay close attention to?
I think those three are the primary concerns.
Laura, in reading your report, got the tonality that you were suggesting that the parking spaces they have proposed are okay, or are you looking to them to go ahead and add the extra spaces?
Yes, that they are sufficient.
So is there a motion to table this application for up to 90 days? 90 days gives you enough time to pull this together. You can take less time if you need it, or, you know, if you can accomplish it in less than 90 days, but 90 days is long enough for you? Okay.
For April.
For March.
March, would it be March?
No, March is the next one.
Yeah, the deadline for the March meeting, I believe, is next week. So they would be looking at an April meeting, and that would give you about a month or 3-4 weeks to pull everything together.
Unless you can get to work and get it done and
It's happened before.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we table application 2416, the BCP Plymouth Industrial Development, for up to 90 days.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Boyd to table application 2416 for up to 90 days. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck to you. Come back with something to blow our hair back.
Yeah, and some building elevations.
Thank you.
Some renderings.
Right.
Renderings.
Next is application 2420, the Inn at St. John's. And just- And we have your memo.
Yes.
Is the applicant here? Okay, if you step forward, please, and
plan with the narrative.
so we don't have a planner's report for this, oh, it came in, I didn't even have a chance to read it. Hold on. Sorry, there it is. Okay, your report, sorry.
Okay to proceed?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, Commissioners, apologize that you didn't have this review ahead of time. I'll go through the proposed modifications to the plan. But ultimately, our recommendation is to grant tentative and final site plan for just the ceremony pavilion at the Inn at St. John's facility. You'll recall that last month, the applicant was before us and requested an amendment to their 2004 PUD, Planned Unit Development, to include the ceremony pavilion and the pro shop expansion and the second or additional banquet facility. This ceremony pavilion is the site plan to move forward with construction itself. And we are recommending tentative and final, just conditional on 2 items. The first would be that pavement markings and/or decorative signage be added to the loop road that runs around the pavilion to ensure that one-way traffic flow is easily understood, especially since many visitors who may not be familiar with the property would be on site. And then the second item is really, it may or may not pertain, but if any decorative lighting is proposed for the building facade itself, that would be noted on the photometric plan and the schedule. So this project really entails the reuse of an existing parking lot in the southwest or southeast corner of the site for a 5,500 square foot pavilion. And we find that the proposed location, as it's kind of crouched within the existing facility, will really help to minimize any noise or light glare that would reach Ridge Road or Ridge Road 5 Mile or Sheldon Road. So that really minimizes the potential for any of those externalities. The area that they will be locating the pavilion on is a underutilized parking lot, so it's largely impervious surface. So this represents an improvement to that. There are several trees within the area that will be removed. 7 are removed, and those are regulated trees, so just over 16 inches would need to be placed back on the site, and the applicant far exceeds that replacement requirement with their landscape plan. No change to the primary vehicular access to the site is proposed, so that will remain off of 5 Mile. What will change is that around the ceremony pavilion, there will be a one-way drop-off loop where there's space available for at least 5 vehicles to stack and drop off. This is where we are recommending that the pavement markers and signage be added. Pedestrians will access the pavilion primarily through the doors of the existing facility. They'll walk to the southeast under a covered pathway that is made with decorative pavers. When the pathway intersects the loop road, there are brick pavers to further call attention to the pedestrian access, and they're also proposing retractable bollards on either side of that pedestrian walkway to provide some additional protection and security. There's also a secondary pedestrian access to the pavilion that's from a paved pathway that connects into the site's larger sidewalk network. The landscaping requirements, they exceed, and even though there's no parking lot screening to speak of, there's over 150 shrubs proposed that really flank that loop road, and that will help cut down on any headlight glare. When looking at the parking requirements, conference centers require 10 parking spaces per every 1,000 square feet of usable floor area. So applying the standard to the pavilion, 44 parking spaces would be required. None are being proposed. We recognize that the pavilion is intended to function as a gathering space for the same group of individuals that would be utilizing space within the facility itself. So it's not going to be generating new traffic by having that gathering space. We do not recommend the creation of any new parking spaces, impervious surface for this use. And we also noted that when the original PUD was approved and the project constructed, that there was an excess of 28 parking spaces that were constructed on the site. So even though they're proposing to remove parking spaces as part of this it's less than what was required. The building design, the ceremony structure will be primarily constructed of a glass nanowall system. The applicant spoke to this at the January meeting. These will be movable glass walls. Brick is also proposed and a metal roof. The area immediately around the ceremony pavilion contains a patio. There's a mix of landscaping elements and seating that help to add visual interest around the building. And the concrete terrace to the east of the pavilion is to be constructed with a heated system to help maximize year-round usage of the pavilion. And then lastly, the photometric plan. There are 8 new light poles that are proposed to be located around the outside of the loop road. These are decorative and pedestrian in scale. They're only 14 feet at mounting height. And they fall well within the maximum illumination levels of the township. And this is where we note if there's any decorative building mounted lighting, that would be included. Thank you.
Where's the patio again?
It's just to the east of the pavilion.
It wraps on the three sides.
Oh, I see. Oh,
That
okay.
shaded area?
I see, yeah.
Okay, and we have the engineering report.
So with all the site improvements that were just stated, there are no additional utility improvements currently proposed for the site outside of the adjustment of a few catch basins. What was seen on the site plan that was provided was that there is an existing 15-inch storm sewer that will be currently running underneath the footprint of the pavilion. This conveys stormwater from not only some building leads, but also from site drainage on the south side of the buildings itself. This ultimately connects with the storm network that will outlet to the detention basin to the east of the site. We will not allow the building to be built on top of this storm sewer, so the storm sewer will have to be relocated in a future plan away from the pavilion itself. Besides that, we recommend moving forward with site plan approval at this time.
Thank you.
Tentative and final?
Correct.
You have anything to add to that?
Well, thank you again for having me. I felt like, and then there was one. So I get all this attention. No, I mean, everything is consistent with where we're trying to go with the project. The landscaping and the heated pavers and drives and everything. I mean, it's hospitality. It's going to look good. There's no question. We're not. We're raising the bar on everything around there. The photometrics we're less concerned about some of those, because what the photometrics don't take into account is that in the evening when this thing is illuminated internally, right? We have internal lighting that's just going to make it glow. So that spill off of that lighting that's why we didn't want to get intense with the parking, or not parking, but the drive lighting and the pedestrian walking, because there's going to be so much blowout from inside to outside that it would just be overshadowing and really seeing the silhouette of the building with the standing seam metal roof and everything else is really what's going to make it just stand out like a jewel. And you can see, I mean, there's a tremendous less hard surface, so the water, obviously. The other thing that's really important to note about this design is when you're inside, on the southeast corner, even though it might not be true southeast, when you're looking out the end, it's really elevated. I mean, you're overlooking every car, you're overlooking every tree and shrub, and you're really looking into the horizon line. So it's a very different, because the contours and how we're working. We do acknowledge, obviously, the storm issue. I would just, I guess, ask a consideration because of the type of footing system that we're doing here. And I know typically we have done sewers under buildings, sometimes it just happens. But the type of foundation system that we're doing, because it's so elevated, we're on piers. We're on significant piers, so it's not a traditional foundation. We have piles that are going down. We have a perimeter grade beam that literally holds this entire building up in the air. So it's like on stilts. So very much like if you're in the southern states, you got your buildings on piers. So anything underneath it, it's really irrelevant. We can certainly camera the existing storm and do all of that, but I would think that would be a hardship that really is a very low risk, since it's just stormwater, and it's down 15 feet, and our building is going up 7 feet, so we got a net difference of almost 20 feet. And so piles are being put in the ground, concrete piles, 24 inches. I mean, this is significant. And then grade beams, so the entire slab of the pavilion, because we're doing all engineered fill, the last thing we want is 1/4 inch of settlement. So we are literally floating this building and not just sitting it on top of dirt. And so I guess respectfully ask is if we don't have to move a storm line that's, I think it's a 12 inch, is it?
15.
Or 15 inch, okay. We can camera it, we can put another manhole, but just ripping it up and digging down, we actually are probably doing more disturbance to the existing soil. I just ask that consideration because it is not a traditional strip footing that's sitting on top of the ground.
Well, I would suggest perhaps that you get together with the township
Yeah, no,
engineer,
and that's fine.
you two can hassle that over, because we're not engineers.
Yeah,
And so we put all our trust in
Yeah,
him.
no, and he's absolutely correct in bringing that up. I'm bringing up other mitigating circumstances that we've tried to address that.
Right.
So if I had a strip footing that was bearing on the soil there, then you have maybe a crushing issue. You have, how do you get through it? But this is literally 48-inch grade beams that are 20 inches wide of concrete being suspended. So it's a pretty robust system. There's nothing economical about it. We're making sure those walls don't move and don't crack and don't shift. And we've got significant investment in glass walls that are coming from Germany. It takes 8 months just to get them over here. Yeah.
So is this going to be a year-round use of this?
Yeah, so the pavilion internally will have radiant heat. He'll be air conditioned. So everything is being fed off the primary buildings through a tunnel system. So there'll be no mechanical noise, there'll be no fans, no nothing. It's a very serene space and very tall. It has fir wood ceilings inside, kind of the metal and steel kind of look to it.
Is it one big open space?
One big open space, yeah, with chandeliers and uplit for co-lighting.
How many people would it hold?
Well, 400 to 500 is the kind of magic number. So it can be used for a variety of year-round use. But the toilet facilities, I think, as we may have mentioned earlier, are all inside the existing building, less than the 500 feet, and you would come in and out. And the bollard design, even on the necking down of the road, just there's people going to be coming to and from the existing building, right? So we want to minimize that traffic. Where you got pedestrians crossing, so that's why we want the one-way only, drop-off only, neck it down. We don't want people to parallel park on that initial road that we're showing here. It kind of shows the same width, but in the final engineering, I think that you see, we choked it down from the beginning of the initial ring road to about 3/4 of the way up, and then open it up so that if someone is dropping someone off, they can at least go by. But what we don't want is to have, like you'd see in a typical subdivision, cars parked all the way along to one side of that street, kind of using that as a parking space. So we intentionally necked it down so that it's just a one up, drop off, and then continue back down. So we don't want people to congregate with cars there. It's merely for the convenience of dropping people off. So, and the bollards is if there's an event going on, then those would be pulled up. They're retractable in the ground. Anybody can pretty much reach down and pull it up so that we don't want people then to come anymore with vehicles. And then people can safely go back and forth between the pavilion, which is completely covered as well.
So this is primarily for the reception? Would you have ceremonies in that building?
Yeah, it is receptions, non-Catholic possible weddings that people would have. I mean, the chapel has been, as part of the agreements for Catholic weddings. They have many other, denominations that would like a wedding reception in the summer or fall. I mean, you could open this right up.
And so how is the food it all comes from the main facility and then just,
If they did, but I would, it's all gonna come from a new main kitchen. That's where the blue arrows are on the far left. The new, the entire wing on the left, to the left of the A is the new food kitchen. Bottom left of the Y building. Down just to the left. Clay tile roof building.
Oh, right here?
That's the boiler house up. Too many
blue
buildings, right there.
arrows.
Yep,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
right there. That wing, the bottom left wing. That entire wing is the new food kitchen. And then they have another food kitchen, of course, on the other side. So there's
How does it get from that food kitchen all the way to the outdoor pavilion?
Great question. So there's a new tunnel that'll come right where the arrow, the blue arrow just pokes through. There's a tunnel underground that comes over to an elevator. Prep kitchen just on the vertical of this Y building. There's another prep kitchen there, and then the food will be taken over.
Wow.
It's quite a machine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, I mean, as you may know, they have 400 employees, so.
Quite the system.
Yeah, if you go in the kitchen, there's a lot of people working to make that happen. Yeah, so that's part of, what we're working on now, just demoing and cleaning up and getting that ready for the next phase.
So when this is built out from what you've told us last month, so how many, again, to refresh my memory, how many reception halls are there, or ballrooms, whatever you want to call them? Including this new facility, this outdoor?
Right, so we're building 2. There's currently, get me wrong, I should know this. I believe there's 4 current, and then plus the 2, there'll be a total of 6. There's the atrium, there's 2 main ballrooms, and then there's there's 4.
There's some smaller rooms too. Right?
Yeah, there's some smaller event spaces, they call them. Yeah. Pre-event spaces, and then in the retreat building, which is the one, the far D, where D is, on the second floor, that'll be a pre-event space. So a space is not much different than this, maybe a little bigger than this, before the ceremonies, and people come for obviously cocktails and drinks and everything. So you'll have a lot of options.
Party before the party?
Party before the party, yeah. So it's an exciting project, I tell you. All my staff get excited. I know we have a presentation on the 22nd. We'll have some visuals that'll really.
And you're planning to put shovels in the ground when?
We'd like to March 1 if we could. I mean, as soon as we're going to be, we would like to. We want to hit some fall weddings at the pavilion.
Questions, comments, or concerns from the commission? Are we ready for a motion, tentative and final?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we grant tentative and final site plan approval for the proposed Inn at St. John's Ceremony Pavilion, which is PC application 2420, contingent that the following items be addressed by the Administrative Review Committee, along with any outstanding engineering and fire requirements. That the pavement markings and decorative signage be added to the loop road entrance and exit to ensure the one-way traffic flow is easily understood. And if any decorative lighting is proposed for the building facade itself or the patio area, it must be detailed on the photometric plan and schedule.
Is there support?
Support.
moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Grieger to grant tentative final site plan approvals, subject to said conditions for application 2420. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, good luck to you.
Good luck.
Forward.
Such an exciting project.
Yeah, very exciting.
Almost makes me want to get married again. With 2 daughters, I don't know.
Yeah, you got an anniversary.
Planning ahead, huh?
Yeah. I'm afraid my wife will run for the hills.
Okay, and we have the planning and monthly report. Are there any questions, concerns? I have to ask you, Laura, about the Bolesky Funeral Home. It sort of remained unchanged and they were so much in a hurry. Has any been movement on the part of the applicant or?
No, I have not heard anything back from them.
Okay,
They technically have until July to submit everything.
I thought they were getting close to sometime in the summer that when they got their approvals, okay. Other questions for anybody?
Laura, on the Plymouth Ridge rezoning, the sign explaining the public hearing last November, the actual sign has been was taken down last week. The supports are still there, but the sign's completely gone. Is there any update for the planning commission on the intention of the developers there? It would be appropriate to share at this time.
Which one again, Tim?
The Plymouth Ridge, the Northridge site.
Oh, yeah.
The framework is still there. The
Framework
sign's down.
sign
The
is
frame's
down,
still
yes.
there.
I believe they intend to resubmit their plans. The timing, I'm not sure of.
They have a, as a matter of right, they can resubmit in May, right?
Yes, now they could submit tomorrow if they wanted
Yeah,
to.
right, because of the action taken.
And I guess on that, the other sign that was on Ann Arbor Road in McClumpha, where the condos were gonna go in, the attached condos. So the sign is gone, but it's just laying on the ground.
Fell over in the wind, maybe?
Okay.
I don't know if you wanna do anything about it or.
Yes, we notified both of those 2 property owners that those signs needed to be removed or they would be taken down by the building department, so it sounds like they weren't completely taken down.
Well, they were taken down, they just weren't taken away.
You have to be specific for some people. Any other questions on the monthly report? Okay, thank you, Laura. And then on our annual report to the Board of Trustees.
Great job.
Beautiful job on this, Laura.
Yep,
Yeah.
really nice.
Very professional. Not that you're not always professional,
Right.
but very
And I
nice.
appreciate the comments about Bill Pratt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any comments, concerns?
The version that I got, I don't know if this has been updated or not, but on page 4, toward the bottom, this talked about the residential rear yard setbacks. And this, of course, relates to the ZBA, and that's why I'm familiar with it. It says the amendment was originally brought to the commissions by a homeowner as a result of a decision of the zoning board of appeals to allow for a reduction of the rear setback. I think actually it wasn't a decision, it was a request from the ZBA to the planning commission to allow us to do that. So if we could change the word decision to request, I think that would be more accurate. On page 5, under the column modernization of the zoning ordinance, the first bullet point, the third sentence, stormwater is misspelled. And then just a question, and this again is because I'm new. At the bottom of that left column, The first bullet under master plan implementation says develop and adopt a complete streets policy in partnership with the Environmental Leadership Commission. Can you explain a little bit about what that is, or is that just a comment?
Certainly. Complete Streets is, I would say it was almost a movement that started about a decade ago. And in support of that, many municipalities across the U.S. adopted a policy resolution. And really, it's advocating that streets should be complete streets and that they should be designed for everyone of all ages and all abilities. So not just for motor vehiclists, but for pedestrians or for someone that is in a wheelchair, for seniors, for children. So it's kind of getting away from the thought that the road is just a vehicle to get you somewhere, and that it needs to be holistically thought of so that it can be safe and usable by everyone.
Including bicycles?
Correct, yep.
Thank you, Laura.
Is there any guidance on how that's supposed to be accomplished?
Well, the policy itself, the resolution is kind of more of a statement, but then to implement that, that would be, for instance, the Board of Trustees prioritizing sidewalk gaps or improved crosswalks. The DDA could maybe look at making some areas a little bit safer for pedestrians, or signal improvements even to improve traffic flows.
Yeah, think of it as how the city of Plymouth and their downtown how they have the bike lanes well marked in their downtown. Because we used to never want to bike in downtown Plymouth. It was too dangerous. It's better.
So Laura, how, and you gave us a presentation on this quite a while ago, but in reflecting on it and some of the issues that have come up since that time, so how much influence, authority does the township have, since we don't own the streets? And are we completely dependent on selling whatever we'd like to see to Wayne County?
Well, certainly as Wayne County owns the roads in the township, they will always be a partner in any improvements that are made. But I think the township has kind of taken some proactive steps to better position itself for those improvements. So for instance, Wayne County looks at all of the roads that they own within the county on a PACER scale. So they make their own ratings, and then from that they determine which roads need improvements first. And the township last year developed, with Spalding to Decker, created a PACER rating for all of the township roads so that the township board itself could prioritize those improvements. And I think just last month, the board sent a resolution to Wayne County requesting the list of priorities. So the township had to be proactive in conducting that PACER study themselves. But that is one way that the township can advocate for improvements on its streets. But also, many of the new residential developments that we've seen, those are coming in with private roads. And as private roads, they still have to follow kind of the Wayne County standards for construction. But that's an opportunity for the township to say, we'd like to see wider sidewalks, for instance. Instead of 5 feet, most municipalities are going to 6 or 8 even. So, there's lots of different changes I think that the township still can make and have control over.
It also says in here about having another joint meeting in the spring of 2022. The spring hopefully is soon.
Because the last one went so well.
It's beneficial.
I know.
It was a little awkward at times.
But
I thought
I
it was
can say that.
I thought it was interesting as a spectator, but it was different perspective now, I guess.
I guess if it's in here as to something we want to do, I think we should address it spring soon. Or do we want to say summer or?
I think for the Board of Trustees meeting, that August meeting was a good first step. And so hopefully if the Planning Commission can have another meeting with the board within the next, 2 months, maybe it will be a little bit smoother. And I think both boards recognize kind of the crossroads that the township is at regarding cluster housing developments. And really kind of focusing on that, I think, would be beneficial.
I think it would need actionable items, what's the goal of the meeting? 1 or 2 bullet points probably. If the meeting is an hour, it's hard to do more than just 1 or 2, I think. But I think that would help.
A couple main issues.
Yeah, that would help structure the possibility of having such a meeting again.
I should have said that.
Other concerns or comments? If not, we can make a motion to approve the report as amended and submitted to the Board of Trustees.
Mr. Chairman, I recommend that we approve the 2021 annual report of activities by the Planning Commission with amendments to go to the Township Board.
Support
Support.
by Commissioner Boyd and supported by Commissioner Grieger to submit the 2021 annual report to the Board of Trustees, subject to said conditions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'll lead off on the commissioner comments. I think most of you probably already have gotten, I'm not sure about Tim or Gail. We get the little newsletter about every quarter from the Planning Association. There was one on trees. Quite a bit, the whole issue was on trees. So if you haven't, do you get that?
No,
You don't get it?
very interested
You
to see
probably
it.
don't.
Print or electronic?
It's sent through the mail.
Oh, I have not.
Oh, I
gotten
can
it.
scan it and email it too.
Good, thank
But
you.
that's a good one to read about trees since it's been such a controversy here. And they even mentioned there's an article about the Canton Township problems that they've had. So it's pretty relevant.
And there's information in there too if you wanted to take a class in
Right.
site plans.
Yeah, it's a lot of good. I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
We took that about, Bill Pratt and I took it maybe 20 years ago,
Really?
18 years ago.
And then, I don't know how many of you went to the Phoenix Mill open house, but Greg is also going to be presenting, I don't know, his project, what he went through to rehab that building. And it's going to be, I believe it's next Thursday at 7 p.m. And you can either go in person or Zoom it from the library. You'd have to register either if you're going to Zoom it or if you're going to attend. So if you're interested in hearing more about it, learning more about it, then you probably already know. You might want to do that.
Did you go to the open house? Yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah, I couldn't make it either. I wanted to, but I heard it was really good.
It was very good, yeah. Did he take you on a little tour?
No, he was taking someone else on
Oh.
a tour.
Yeah, it was, he actually now, so he has the event space, on that lower level.
Yeah.
So he has a financial interest in that event space right now, so, and he's already got some bookings. He's got a wedding there, and I think
Nice.
there was a birthday party, some significant, milestone birthday party there, so I think he's doing,
coming along.
it's coming along. Showed us the prep space, where they have for the kitchen, for the food anyway, because there's no kitchen on that floor.
And the architectural businesses, you could look in the window on the second floor and that looks really sharp.
Really?
So So it's coming along.
And interestingly enough, he told me that the spillway, for the river, actually flows underneath that building, and it was leaking. And that generator tower that's so prominent, when we go along Northville Road, it's already shifting. So he, repaired all of that, so I think he got it just in the nick of time.
How many parking spots do they have?
I'm not sure.
Just wondered for events,
Yeah.
for events.
Yeah, I don't know that. I did ask him.
Discussion about that.
Yeah, we had a long discussion. He said there's about 17 employees for that landscape architect.
Okay,
So, because he can't have both going at the same time.
okay.
So I'm not sure. And he's not done with the landscaping. In fact, the landscaping architects that are in that building are preparing the plans when spring comes to finish up his landscaping. And, he's trying to purchase the other mills that are on Newburgh and the Wilcox.
What does he want to do with Wilcox?
I didn't get into that with him too much. He is looking at a coffee shop, juice bar.
That's a tough site.
At the
at
Wilcox
Newburgh,
house?
No, the Wilcox Mill
Yeah.
on Hines and Wilcox Road.
Oh, yeah.
There's no utilities run to that building.
Yeah. It's steep there too, isn't it?
It's really steep,
Yeah.
and it's a floodplain.
Oh, other than that, it's perfect.
Challenge.
I mean, I'd like to see something done with it, but it's very
It is challenging.
It's very challenging. But I think the Phoenix looks really sharp from the road. I didn't have a chance to go in.
Another interesting point, was an all-female factory.
Yeah.
So there were no men's restrooms. It was just women. I said there were no men's, and he said, well, I think the
Makes sense.
supervisor had one,
As
which was a
yeah.
male.
Of course.
But he kept
He gets his
the,
own.
I'm not going anywhere near
doesn't
that.
get to share.
well, he's fixed it. He's
He gets
fixed it.
his own.
And then they were able to, find the original paint color, and stripping all the walls and stuff. So he painted the women's restroom pink, the original color that it was when the women were working there.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Any other comments?
I just wanted to mention about attendance. Keith Postel isn't here tonight and he won't be here next month. So since we're, John Itzel's absent tonight, just if you know that you're going to be absent, if you could let us know, or that you might be absent, just so we can make sure that we have a quorum.
What's the date of the March meeting? Do you know offhand? 16th?
Yeah, 16th. So, and for instance, last month, we didn't have a full commission and it would have been beneficial, especially at that meeting.
At the
Have a full-
special meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
So just if you could let us know, Dennis or me know if you think you may not or definitely won't be at a meeting. So we can make sure that we can have a quorum.
Else? Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Commissioner Barberina, supported by Commissioner Dorchevitz to approve, or to adjourn the meeting at 8:20 PM. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried, we're adjourned.
Thank you.